Welcome back to My BrainWise Coach. I am one of your co-hosts, Bastian, and I'm joined by
the other co-host, Phil Dixon.
And we are so excited to be back with you for another week going on the exploration of neuroscience, our brains, and how all of that translates into how am I showing up each and every day and what might I want to do differently. So we're so glad that you continue to go along this journey with us. For our BrainWise friends that are in the US, particularly, we hope you had a fabulous Thanksgiving experience and that you got all the things that you wanted out of that time. And we look forward to the next couple of weeks. I know myself, I'm going to need to do a little bit of extra working out because I'd wear my stretchy pants on that Thursday and a couple of days after, because we certainly had a really wonderful time with our family that came up to join us for Thanksgiving. So, Bill, how was your Thanksgiving before we dive right in?
My Thanksgiving is always, quite frankly, interesting because I didn't grow up with the concept of Thanksgiving. It's always new for me. It's okay, what is expected? The very first Thanksgiving I had in America where we went around the table and expressed gratitude was a completely new experience for me. So it's not quite as embedded in me. It's not part of my, if we talk about mental models, it's not one of my mental models. I always enjoy cooking. I always enjoy great food, and it's always an example. But I do have to say, I think it's a very wonderful American celebration to actually spend time saying, let's be grateful and thankful for what we have.
Amen. Because I know I can speak from my own personal experience, the blessings that continue to come in. I just am blown away every day. So very grateful for all of that. Let's dive into our episode or conversation today, because Phil, last time we spoke about multiple characters, which I think our BrainWise friends just had a fabulous time listening to. And we decided we're actually going to do some more of that as we go along this journey, specifically around multiple characters, because we think there's so much relatability to it. We also announced our 5 contest winners. So congratulations again to those 5 winners. Your gift cards and the book is on the way. So be on the lookout for it. And today we're going to be going through, as we were planning what we wanted to talk about next, Phil has mentioned this 2-day workshop. He's mentioned some of the work that he's done in helping people identify what they want to do next. And so this is for anyone who may feel stuck, who may feel stagnant, who may feel change is encroaching on you, but you feel like, I don't know exactly what I might want to do as I move forward. And so we're going to be talking about, and this may turn into a couple of episodes, and maybe 1 and maybe 2. We are not exactly sure how this dialogue is going to flow because we're just going to let it flow naturally. And what we're going to actually do is I'm going to be a participant, and Phil's going to actually do some of this work with me in real time for you all to see live on camera in audio. And then we'll talk about how you might do some of that yourself. But it's really to help us identify where we are today, deal with some things that we might be experiencing in our current environment, and then really, what do we want for our future and how do we get there? So, Phil, let's dive into this extremely exciting conversation today. We'll start at the very beginning of this process. And let me just ask you, how would you define feeling stuck? Because it's going to be different for everyone.
It certainly is. For some people, it's, I don't know what's going to happen next. And a lot of people at the moment are facing that. It's a stressful time. It builds up angst. I just don't know. And I feel stuck. For some people, they're in the middle of the change and they don't know what's happening. They use the phrase, I feel stuck. For some people, it's I've been doing the same thing again and again. I don't seem to be able to get out of this rut. I feel stuck. For some people, it's I've moved jobs. I'm now doing a project manager in this next company, but I still don't think it's what I really want to be doing. So it can manifest itself in all sorts of ways. But helping yourself understand where you are in a transition process helps. And this is not mine. It's credited with a guy called William Bridges. William Bridges wrote a book probably 30 years ago now called 2 great books for anyone who wants to read them. One is called Transitions by William Bridges. And the other one is called Surviving Corporate Transitions, same author. And so both of those are very fundamental. But I'm going to try and give you the sort of the underlying premises in those books. And the one is you have a mental model, most people are saying, okay, a change occurs and I'm starting off. It doesn't happen that way. A change occurs when what we call a change trigger is pulled.
Mhm.
That can be all sorts of things. It can mean you had a divorce, or you got announced that you're having a baby, or that you've got a new boss, or that the company's broken and is going to fold, or whatever it might be. Those are a single event, and that event
Right.
is what we call a change trigger. That means what was going on in your past has now ended,
Right.
and you've got something new to look forward to, or otherwise.
Right.
Those are what we call endings. So that part of your life ended.
And it can be because as I'm hearing those descriptions, those are large transitions, but I also think it can be even to some degree. We're going to run for city council, and that's a change for me and for my spouse. May not be significant, and I'm changing jobs or I'm doing, but my life for the next 6 to 8 weeks is going to look very different than it did before. And then if we win, right, then that's going to look even more different for
Yeah.
4 years. So there is, I think, even changes like that can be a part of this dialogue.
Yeah. And those changes can be things that you intended, you made a choice to do, like I
Right.
resigned yesterday, or they can be things that are thrust upon you. And
Mhm.
so those are, whatever they are, they're change triggers. Now we have this idea that therefore that something new is going to happen, but it doesn't happen.
Right.
What happens is we're not used to the future yet. We haven't quite got our arms around what it is, how we're going to behave, what we have to do, what our routines are going to be. Are we going to be living in the same place? All of those things that have been thrown up in the air. So you've got the endings happening, but you don't have the definition of what that new beginning will look like. Well, there's a period in between, and Bridges calls it the neutral zone. And so we've got endings that happen, the neutral zone, and then these new beginnings once everything becomes clear. In the middle of that,
I would describe it as uncertain zone.
it's for some people, it's uncertain. For some people,
Mhm.
it's where they feel stuck. It's also been called the tar pit. It's been called the
Right.
wilderness. But it also turns out it's a period of time for great creativity and inventiveness
Mhm.
because it gives you a mental excuse to throw away the past and reinvent the future. Does that make
I love it.
sense? And
Totally
so
makes. You're describing my life right now, Phil.
you can spend that time saying, what is it I want it to look like?
Mhm.
I've either been put into this position or I've chosen to be in this position where I've got an opportunity to take stock and look back. So I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
It's a generic question about the world in general, not about coal.
Okay.
How long do you think the average person takes in planning their next vacation?
From observation, 2, 3 days, maybe not total days in a row, but probably over a course of a couple of weeks or something, but the equivalent to that amount of time.
Yeah. And so, for example, I'm planning a vacation next May to meet up with all my sisters, and we're all going to be in one place for the first time in probably 25 years.
Wow.
And so I've already probably spent 3, 4, 5 days on planning that, researching what we're going to do, booking hotels, etc. Let me ask you another question.
Okay.
How long do you think most people take in planning their lives?
Probably, I would assume it's not very, based off observation, it's not much. They experience life as it happens versus putting plans in place. Now, there is a caveat I want to share personally when we're ready to get there. But that's what I would say from the general population, it's probably less than that, maybe a couple hours in total. Some people do vision boards each year, but that might take 3 or 4 hours, and that's for the whole next year versus a 2 week or 5 day period that they take 4 days to plan.
Yeah. So let's just look at the logic of that. I'm going to take a 2 week vacation and I spend 4 days on it.
Right.
Right. I'm got another, whatever it is, 30, 40, 50, 60 years of my life, and I might spend 2 hours thinking about it. We've got
Mhm.
something slightly out of whack. And so what I thought about this probably 30 years ago, 40 years ago, and said, what if we need to do something different? I wrote a self-published book back then called Perfecting Your Life. What is it you want to do next? And so that's really the fundamental model, if you like, or the map. I prefer to call it a transition map of how do we think about what happens next.
I love it. It's interesting because personally, I feel, and I probably fall into that context of planning vacations more in some instances, but I think in the last decade, I mean, my whole life, you ask my mom or anyone who's known me for any long period of time, every day of my life, every year is planned. I've always had this plan. I've always known I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that next, and then I'm going to go here, I'm going to do this. And I don't like it when things are not planned. But then when it comes to vacations, it's probably a bit more whimsical in nature. I make the decision, we're going to this place, we're going to stay here. And I think the general comes in, which is so fascinating as we talk about this, Phil, because I'm remembering like planning vacations with my husband. What I need to do is take time enjoying the experience of planning the vacation versus it being this, okay, let's be efficient about it. Cause I'm sure when Joey listens to this, he'll be like, oh my gosh, that's definitely cool. The general's there because, all right, we're going here. Let's pick the place. Let's pick what we're going to do because we have other things to, to move on to. There's always something else I want to plan or move on or talk about. Whereas I need to focus on really enjoying the moment. So
Yeah.
very fast. I just wanted to share that anecdote because it's just something I'm listening to and I'm learning about myself.
And I'll show you something else. I knew a lady, she was actually my assistant for many years. And she had been a travel agent, as had her mother. And one time they both decided they were going to go on vacation together. And being a travel agent, they both had their general characteristic, i.e., we're organized, this way we're going to do it. And they both had it. So there were two generals going on vacation together.
Jeez.
And apparently the first 3 or 4 days was hell.
I can only imagine.
And so they came up with a unique solution. And I share this with everybody. They decided what they would do every morning. They would turn around and say, which one of us is going to be the designated thinker today? Which allowed the other one to completely relax and go along for the ride. And it's almost like it reminded me of when you were talking about that of the, hey, when can you let the general not have to lead the army?
A lot of times what I'm learning is, especially for me as Joey and I, making sure when we're planning, he is very much about enjoying the moment, enjoying the experience. And it's one of the many reasons I love him. But he helps remind me of that, where we can enjoy the experience of searching for the place to stay. We can enjoy the experience of looking for what to do and building the anticipation versus where my general would come out and say, is this an efficient use of time? It is, because it's connecting with my husband. I just have to remind myself of that consciously. But I didn't mean to take us on another tangent, but I think that was really fascinating as we were talking about it. So let's go back to our conversation around being stuck or being in the moment.
But before we do that, I want to point out how that efficiency tends to get manifested these days. And it's through this.
Oh, totally.
Go to any sort of reasonable place where people want to go and visit, and everyone is seeing they're taking this rather than experiencing the moment. And now, there's nothing wrong with doing that, but it's not the only way to be there. Get the experience. So you got a memory when you get back, but now put it to one side and enjoy what's going on. Experience it in real time as opposed to in retrospect.
100%. And that's where I think I help with Joey sometimes, is because I'm not a picture taker. One, I don't like having my picture taken. That's number one. But number two, when we're there, I'd rather have the one-on-one time together. I'm less worried about taking pictures and all of that. And so we were able to really balance each other out. So anyways, I love it. 100%. Enjoy the experience, enjoy the moments, because they're so fleeting. But let's get back to, we're feeling stuck, we're feeling uncertain, we're in the wilderness. What do we do next, and what's a process? And I'm going to be actually a real life example and demonstration for people as we go along this.
If you were sitting in my office with me right now, we would unroll a map on the wall.
Okay.
And the map would have 6 main components to it. And it would have a map or a box. What is your future? What do you want it to be? Both in terms of what do you want to do, which is a left brain activity, and how do you want to show up? And what are the characteristics that you want to display, which is more of a right brain activity? So we would actually have those discussions.
Yeah.
We can come back to how to have those discussions in a moment, right? Then the next thing to do is to explore who you are today. And that is, what are your strengths? What are your characteristics? What are your mental models? A whole bunch of things about you, what you've got today, your skill sets, your qualities, your values. We can develop a really rich description of where that is. And then you can look back and go over here, which of those qualities, values, things I do, strengths I have are actually going to be useful to me in the future? Or are there a few I want to let go of or change or do something different with? And that strikes me as another point in here. And this is why I look at things from a brain basis. Our brains aren't very good at focusing on the future, because what will happen is it will cause you to think about something in the present. And thinking about something in the present will cause you to think about something you need to do about it. All right. Which takes us to the third part of it, which is, what is your pathway moving forward? What are the things that you need to do?
Right.
So those are the first three components: future, present, and the pathway forward. Each of those requires a fairly in-depth conversation. When we have a discussion about the pathway forward, what often will happen is, and we've seen this happen many times, people actually don't know what the first step is that they need to take. Do I jump off that cliff? How do I do this? So we tend to go into an initial experimental stage where we'll try a few things. That's perfectly okay. You don't go out and hit par golf the first time you go and play golf. You have to go and practice. It's the same thing with life. You've got to go out, experiment, do a little bit of practice. Okay, so we've got those three things there. Yep. Now, we've talked about this already in terms of the neuroscience. A lot of what we are today is driven by our past. So we're going to have to go back and look at those elements that have happened to us in the past, which cast a shadow over our current situation and anything we're likely to do in the future and how we're going to get there.
Right.
So that's the fourth element of the past. And again, when we're thinking about it, when we're talking about it, it doesn't happen it's in blocks and sequence and one after another. It tends to happen that we bounce back and forth. That's fine. We'll record it as we go. All right. So now that's your overall plan. And in fact, if you go into most MBAs, you have to think about this again. If you go and study an MBA, that's exactly what they tell you. Future state, current state, and how to get there, path. But there's a couple of other things that most MBAs miss. And that number one is, do you have the willpower to actually do it? And whether you call it willpower or discipline or backbone or whatever it might be, do you actually have the courage to say, yes, that's the pathway I'm going to take? So that's a fifth component. And then last of all is, no man is an island, or no woman is an island, whatever you want to say. We need the outside world, and we need support from the outside. And whether that's support in terms of getting a qualification, or going and studying something, or having an explicit help, like a coach or a therapist or whatever it might be.
Just going to say that.
So that's that. So we've now got 6 components: the future, the present, the pathway, the past. I'll call it discipline and
resolve.
And resolve is another way of putting it. Yes. And support. So part of our overall transition map is going to be developing aspects in each of those areas.
That concludes segment 1, where we began our discussion around what to do or how to plan if you feel stuck, or if you're in the midst of a career transition or a life transition, or simply looking to make a change. And we talked a lot about the transition map and how we navigate through each of those different pieces. Stay tuned until tomorrow, where we continue our journey on this exact same discussion. Until then, stay curious, stay compassionate, and always stay brainwise.